Hey, there's Scott Ritter. You
Hey,
know,
Scott.
you know,
Yes.
prior to the start of this operation, of this war, the Pentagon came out basically, and I don't know if they leaked, but it pretty much came out that the people making the decision were told probably not a good idea. This might not work out well. So the word was out that the Joint Chiefs of Staff were against it. One of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was literally fired. And now, I mean, they haven't said even their original arguments. It's about nuclear weapons. Do you remember when Donald Trump was asked? He was asked, and a member of the press said to Trump, but Tulsi Gabbard just came out with a report and said that they don't have a weaponized nuclear program. And he says, I don't care what she said. In other words, who cares if this stuff is true? This has been the whole thing with the U.S. foreign policy. They don't care. Now, CNN doesn't care. They've repeated these lies. Now that the ship's going down, the rats are jumping off the sinking ship, including CNN, who were always in favor of this crap and pushed every lie. And now all of these neocons, and I saw Bill Kristol tweeting, well, I don't know, we probably did. Why are we doing this anyway? The rats are jumping off the sinking ship, and they're going to leave Donald Trump, the people that helped to drag him on here, they're going to hang him out to dry as the scapegoat, because this thing is a catastrophe of biblical proportions. Hopefully not, but it has potential to be.
Well, let me bring you in, Scott. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Ritter, former weapons inspector. I want to show you guys this here. I don't think Donald Trump was prepared for this. Iran hit 14 countries in one night. You can see a map here of all of these targets here. I'll get to the Saudi Arabia part a little bit later because there's so much different information coming from that angle. But I want to show you guys the look on Donald Trump's face. Check this out. Scott, what are your thoughts? To me, it looks like Donald Trump does not look, I don't know. He doesn't look confident in that video.
Well, I said that from the start when you take a look at the video that was released in Mar-a-Lago announcing the beginning of this conflict. It was just extraordinarily low energy. Now people can say because it was at 2 a.m. and after a long day. Do you remember when Donald Trump was campaigning for president? He was putting in unbelievably long days. I mean, he was just traveling here, there, and everywhere. But he would finish each day doing a rally. And these rallies were high energy events. And whether you liked the guy or not, you just had to sit there and go, wow, there's some energy there. And you could see he was excited, forceful. Announcing this war, he was just low energy, not enthusiastic, and he's been that way ever since. I think that this is a conflict that was thrust upon him. There's a story going around when Bill Clinton first met with Benjamin Netanyahu after he became president. When it was done, he was shouting at his staff, who the hell does he think he is? I'm the president of the United States. How can he talk? But the point is, as far as Benjamin Netanyahu is concerned, you're just a client. You're a client of the Israeli enterprise, and you're here to do Israel's bidding. And I think, Benjamin Netanyahu visited Donald Trump. That's when apparently the decision for this conflict was made. After that point, Trump began the diplomatic perfidy, using diplomacy as a way to have Iran drop its guard yet again before a surprise attack. But he, as Garland said, he was confronted by, his generals who said no, but it was too late. He had already said yes. He had already told Netanyahu yes, that it was going to happen. He was trapped by a number of things. I've said this before, that once you start deploying that many troops into the region, the war becomes automatic. The decision's already been made. And so here's a situation where I think many people are telling him that this is a bad idea. And I think deep inside he knows it's a bad idea, but he was trapped. He literally, had already made the decision. There was nothing to get out. So I don't see this president being in love with this war. And I think you're going to see not just continued low energy, but he's going to start to lash out, because I think he understands that unless a miracle happens, his presidency is over, literally. I mean, we speak of regime change. This is not only the end of Donald Trump's presidency, because he will lose the midterm elections, but he's probably going to lose the midterm elections decisively, not just losing the House, which guarantees impeachment, but losing the Senate, which could bring about conviction. Donald Trump is literally staring a jail cell in the face. Everything that he fought for is about, has been put at risk here. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I think that's what you were looking at. You're looking at a man coming to grips with the fact that he was compelled to make a decision that will be the end of his political legacy.
Well, speaking of this, some weird things happen in Saudi Arabia that I have to point to, because there have been strikes all over. One of the things that did happen, one of the oil refineries in Saudi Arabia, the Aramco refinery, was hit. I just want to show everybody this picture here. Yeah, so that's one of the oil refineries that was hit there. And then, but there's more. Another thing that happened was that the U.S. Embassy was also hit in Saudi Arabia, for people who didn't see this. Yeah, you guys can see the gist of that there. And then another thing that happened, and this was just earlier, the U.S. consulate was hit in Dubai. Let me show you guys this one.
Last hour or so, that threat at the U.S. consulate in the east of Saudi Arabia was still in place. So a level of intelligence seeing these threats coming. But to your point, the ability to interdict missiles coming at U.S. consulates and embassies seems to be diminished. Look, take Riyadh here, the capital of Saudi Arabia, yesterday as an example. 4 drones get through to and hit in and around the U.S. embassy here, yet 5 drones fired at the massive Saudi military airbase just outside of the capital. Those were all brought down. The 2 drones that were fired at the big Saudi oil refinery near Dhahran in the east of the country, 2 drones fired there, they were shot down. Some debris did set fire to oil facilities, but it seems that there is a weakness or a hole in the defensive systems around.
Yeah, weakness or a hole in the defensive system. And then I have to show you what Tucker Carlson said that he heard happened in Saudi Arabia, and I want to get your take on this.
So it's probably hasn't been reported, but it's a fact that last night in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, authorities arrested Mossad agents planning on committing bombings in those countries. Now, that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. Why would the Israelis be committing bombings in 2 Gulf countries, which are also being attacked by Iran? Aren't they on the same side?
Garland, I'll pass it to you, and then I'll pick up with Scott here. Who made these attacks? The Iranians were saying that they did not attack the embassy in Saudi Arabia. What is happening here? Was that Mossad, or what is going on?
Well, a couple of things. So far, I have not seen any attacks that the Iranians have made that they have denied. They've been pretty open. We hit this. In fact, prior to the beginning of this operation, they specifically said what they were going to hit, and they've been pretty consistent with hitting the things that they said they were going to hit. So I suspect that there is a certain level of desperation. I suspect there's some false flag operations, either U.S. intelligence or perhaps British intelligence, perhaps Israeli intelligence. But it would only make sense that there would be some intelligence operations and some false flag operations going on, such as this. I don't know. Again, the fog of war, you really don't know. Additionally, at times there are drones that could be fired by, for instance, there's various groups in Iraq that are, kind of private militia kind of things. You never know who any of those could fire at. So there's a lot of various parties that could have fired. Could be false flags. And again, it could be various militia groups who are firing here. And this is the fog of war. There's going to be munitions flying all over the place, and you're not always going to know where they came from.
Okay. Scott?
I mean, there's just not enough data for me to draw a conclusion one way or the other. What we do know is that Iran has made a decision that there's not going to be an escalation ladder, that they're not going to start low and escalate up, that they went all out at the beginning. We know that the United States and Israel's goal and objective is the end of the Iranian government, the collapse of the Iranian regime. Iran's goal is, because this is existential, it's not just survival. Iran is looking to win, and victory will be measured by driving the United States out of the Middle East. Iran's goal is to destroy the totality of the military infrastructure, all of the bases, destroy, not damage, destroy. And also eliminate the American diplomatic footprint. So you see extensive attacks against embassies, consulates, CIA stations, etc. And so, the attack on Riyadh would be consistent with that target deck. As Garland said, it's not just Iran, but there are other actors out there that are sympathetic to Iran that could have done this. I don't know about false flags and things of that nature. Forensically, it's just when a Shahed 136 hits a target, it leaves debris, and I don't know how good the Mossad is. Can they doctor that scene and get away with it? Because it's not just about making something blow up, it's about making something blow up convincingly. So there's too much unknown there. What I will say is that the Iranians are engaged in a war-winning strategy designed to excise the American cancer from the Middle East, and all the targets that are being hit seem to do that. Look at Aramco. The signal that they're sending is that, they've struck Qatari natural gas. They're not producing natural gas right now. They stopped shipping it. That's where Europe gets its gas nowadays. That's where the rest of the world. It's not being shipped. Look at the price of gas going through the roof. They're blowing up the pipeline that the United Arab Emirates used to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. Look at England. The price of gasoline doubled. They blocked the Strait of Hormuz. That's 22% of the world's energy not moving. They've said not a single barrel of oil is going to make it to market out of the Middle East. They're strangling not just the world, but they're strangling the Gulf Arab states as well, whose economies are totally dependent upon this. So it wouldn't surprise me if this was Iran, because it's consistent with the Iranian goal and objectives.
Well, here's something I wanted to show you guys as well. Saudi Arabia feels as though they have been abandoned by the U.S. They said, the gentleman here said, Saudi political analyst Salman al-Akili on Al Jazeera says, America has abandoned us and focused its defense systems on protecting Israel, leaving the Gulf states that host its military bases at the mercy of the Iranian missiles and drones. I'll show you guys here. It's not in English, so everyone have to read along.
الدفاع الأمريكي مركز على إسرائيل دون دول الخليج التي تقع فيها كثير من القواعد العسكرية. وما في شك، أنا في تقديري أعتقد أن هناك نوع من العتب الخليجي على الحليف أو الشريك، إذا وصفناه بدقة، الشريك الأمريكي الذي يركز على أمن إسرائيل.
So he said our ally, our partner, the US, is focusing on the stability and the security of Israel. So they feel abandoned. And I want to get your take on that. You guys go ahead and jump in.
Well, a message to the side chick. The U.S. ain't leaving her wife for you. You know, I'm sorry. I know they said that, yeah, Israel's over. I'm going to leave her and I'm going to go. No, that's not the way it works. You're being used. You're there for one reason only, and you're being used for that reason. And now, right now, they're going home. Oh, there's something wrong. There's a snowstorm coming. They're going home to their wife. Shovel your own snow. Handle your own business. You are there to be used. And shockingly, the shock to me is that they expected something else. They are an expendable asset. Welcome to the real world. Good. I'm glad to see them learn this.
Scott.
Yeah, I can't come up with a better analogy than that, so I'm going to let Garland run with that one. But it's the truth. The Gulf Arab states for several decades now have been hiding behind, this. First of all, the thing that makes them relevant in the world is, wealth, and they have a lot of it because of the energy. So they're very rich, stability that comes with the wealth, and security. And the security comes from the shield provided by the United States. The United States has sold them billions of dollars of modern weaponry, and the United States has a military presence in the Gulf that dates back to Jimmy Carter and the Carter Doctrine about deploying American military resources to protect, the energy of the Persian Gulf from the Soviets, from the Russians, from the Iranians. That was it. Look at the United Arab Emirates. It's not just Saudi Arabia. The United Arab Emirates spent $2 billion on American ballistic missile defense systems. And, when they bought it, they were thinking, Operation Desert Storm type missile expenditures. During Operation Desert Storm, the Iraqis fired 49 Scud missiles during the entire conflict into Israel. Iran fires that in an hour. So they bought all these missile interceptors, and now they're dealing with the fact that they're running out on day 3. And so they turned to the United States and said, we need more interceptors. And the United States won't even answer their call because in the United States is, because one, the United States is running out of them, but more importantly, Israel's running out of them. So the United States is getting ready to draw down our defensive capabilities in Korea, Japan, in the Pacific at a time when, according to the National Security Strategy document, we're supposed to be seeking conventional military overmatch of China, meaning we're supposed to be intimidating the Chinese into not doing anything in the South, China Sea or in Taiwan because we're so overwhelmingly militarily powerful. And now we're just going to draw down those defenses, and they're not going to our Gulf Arab allies. Again, Garland hit it just right. These people thought that the U.S. was going to leave their wife and take them home as a trophy wife, and they turned out that the U.S. isn't leaving their wife. Israel is there, and these people are left alone. And this is the reality. But this is going to play into the hands of Iran, because now that there's this wake-up call with the Gulf Arab states, when they realize not only that they've been left at the altar, so to speak, but that there's no future. The United States it was all a lie, this concept of a security shield, et cetera. The United States will never be able to protect them. I think the Gulf Arab states are going to be compelled to eventually pressure the United States to leave the region. I think, first of all, when you have your military infrastructure being destroyed, all the bases that the U.S. had are being destroyed. We're talking about $100 billion worth of infrastructure. That means that when this ends, the U.S. can't just simply return. There's nothing to return to. You've got to rebuild. And the Gulf Arab states just aren't going to let them rebuild. The Gulf Arab states say, don't come home. We don't want you. And it's not just the military, it's the diplomatic. We get back to the embassies. We have huge embassies in these regions. Why? Because the embassies are used for a variety of things, defense contracts, CIA presence. These embassies are being shut down and destroyed. And again, when this war ends, the U.S. is going to have to rebuild embassies, and nations are going to say, well, you don't get to have that prime property anymore. We'll give you, the one house lot on the end of, South Street. I think what we're seeing is the strategic defeat of the United States being played out before our very eyes.
And Sabby, if I could use that unsavory metaphor a little further, you will forgive me. And if Saudi Arabia, if Saudi Arabia is a side chick, Ukraine now is nothing but a cheap hooker who's addicted to crack, and you gave Uncle Sam the clap. That's all you are now. He can't stand you. He doesn't even want to see you again. That's all Ukraine is, a drug addicted hooker. It's ridiculous. With venereal disease. That's what literally Trump called what's his name today? P.T. Barnum. He says, P.T. Barnum's giving them money. You get nothing anymore. You're not getting any money. You're not getting any weapons. And you know what? Europe is going broke. They're screaming around, where can we find gas? Oh, geez. Europe is not going to give you $90 billion. They're not giving you anything. It's over. You're going to get surrounded in a cauldron. Zelensky, you should be on the phone right now with Moscow saying, please have mercy on us. Ukraine is finished.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I have to show this part. This was probably the most crazy thing I heard earlier today. U.S. troops were told Iran war is for Armageddon, return of Jesus. Apparently, I don't know if you guys heard about this, but apparently troops were told that Donald Trump said he had been summoned by Jesus to bring forward Armageddon. And this is why I point to this. Professor Jing has been talking about this as well. The U.S., I feel like Donald Trump knows the U.S. Can't win, but I feel like he's willing to sacrifice American troops for Israel. Scott?
Well, clearly he is willing to sacrifice American troops for Israel, but he's also willing to sacrifice American security and the security of our allies. The only ally he's not willing to put at risk is Israel. Although Israel is, when we suffer a strategic defeat, Israel will be put at risk. I can't beat Garland's crack hoe reference, so I'm not even going to try. But the reality is that Europe is done. I mean, Europe committed economic suicide by cutting itself off from cheap Russian energy, and now they've been paying the price with higher energy costs. Their energy costs are just going to go through the roof right now. That $90 billion that Ukraine thought they were going to get, it's gone because there is no money anymore. Europe is literally done. We now are seeing Europe starting to say, we need to take another look at Russian energy. Imagine that. Europe just a week ago was saying, we're in for our, 450th round of sanctions, and we're going to shut down Russian energy and all that. And now Europe's saying, we need to take another look at Russian energy because they are facing literal economic catastrophe. In the eye, what you started off with this story about the American commanders speaking about Armageddon and stuff. This is a disturbing trend that's been happening for some time now. You guys may not remember General Boykin. He was a Delta Force squadron commander, wounded, and in the Black Hawk Down thing in Somalia. Went on to become a general officer. He was notorious for, talking about the Crusader mentality, especially after 9/11, and that we were a Christian crusading nation going after the infidel, things of that nature. At that time, he was put in his place, but today, we have a Secretary of Defense that literally has Crusader crosses tattooed on his chest. And, we have a nation of Christian Zionists and evangelicals who, have this end of days philosophy. And it's very bad because the military is not supposed to be this way. It's supposed to be apolitical, and we don't have a state religion. But now we have, commanders now. I mean, the Air Force Academy was one of the worst. For a while there, the Air Force Academy was literally a Christian cult. Cadets would come in, and there were secret Christian societies that you have to become a member of, hazing, the whole works. Because these Christian fundamentalists had taken control of the U.S. Air Force. But they've taken control of, for instance, U.S. Army Special Forces, Special Operations Forces have become sort of a Christian death cult. And now we're seeing that commanding officers are the same way. This is not what we should be doing. We shouldn't be rallying around, a God is great, type mentality. We aren't the Crusaders. We're Americans. And we should be defending the Constitution, not preparing for Armageddon.
And just to let people know, so because the supreme leader has been killed, they were trying to meet to vote for a new supreme leader. And Israel, this is from Dropside News, they said that Israel strikes the Assembly of Experts during that secession vote. You guys can see the aftermath of that here. They won't even let them vote. Yeah, so they won't even let them vote for a new leader. But another thing that I think is really needs to be said is obviously they don't want them to pick a new leader. They want the West to decide who that leader is going to be, I would say. But then also that I do think there has been, they underestimated Iran. Some of these hits that I saw that Iran made were powerful hits. And for people who are not aware, the Iron Dome doesn't protect everything. Missiles can still get through the Iron Dome. I saw Tel Aviv get some pretty powerful hits as well. So Iran has just been pow, 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 firing back. And that is, of course, in response also to the 150 something schoolgirls that were killed by the U.S. and Israel. I pass to you, Garland.
Well, what we're seeing now is that the air defense, and this has been discussed now for several years, particularly in light of the performance or lack thereof of the Patriot air system, air defense systems in Ukraine, and that is that the U.S. and the Western air defense systems are woefully lacking. They're just not that good. They haven't worked well, and now they've gone into a major conflict with a country that has a significant offensive surface-to-surface missile program with poor air defenses. And this could be expected. I believe that is why the people at the Pentagon were, trying to dissuade the civilian leadership from taking this action. I think they knew that they had some problems. I mean, keep in mind, they had 2 aircraft carriers, and they went after the Houthis, and they got ran out of the Red Sea. These are the Houthis. This was not, Iran. So it should have been clear that basically with 1.5, one of them, okay, they had the Abraham Lincoln. The Iranians claim to have struck that. It seems to have left the area. We don't know for sure. But the other one, the Gerald Ford, the one that had the sewage problem, is off the coast of Israel. I think they're supposed to be using their airplanes to interdict incoming missiles. Not doing so great a job right now there either. And I think, and if you think about it, I mean, it shouldn't be surprising. Stopping an incoming ballistic missile, oftentimes they're moving at near hypersonic speed, at least high supersonic speed, is effectively like shooting a bullet with another bullet. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. And particularly when you're overwhelmed with drones and duds and flares and everything these days. So it's very difficult to do. They haven't been able to do it. It was a foolish move, and now they're paying what would be the obvious price. And now, I don't know if you've heard, supposedly the French are sending their only aircraft carrier. And I'm like, well, I hope they're bringing white flags, because that's the only thing that's going to be of any value. I mean, if it's the French, I'm thinking to myself, they're going to surrender now. I mean, that's what you would call the French in for, so you could surrender on their decks. But on the deck of the aircraft carrier. But at any rate, I would imagine right now I don't think the Iranians are scared. I think they're just like, oh, good, we can't wait till it gets in range. I mean, if I were the French, I'd be like, I only got one, I can't spare it.
Yeah,
One last thing. You know what that is? The French are playing with fire. 30% of French, due to all of these regime change wars and the influx of refugees from countries that they attacked and screwed all up, France is like 30% Muslim now. I mean, what happens if they declare jihad or something like that in France? They'll burn the country down. These people are fools.
Yeah, I think Macron has his own problems he needs to worry about in his own country.
Beat the hell out of him most of the time.
In his own country. I know. But Scott, I was wondering, we heard about the death toll of the U.S. soldiers. I'm getting reports from other people in the background that is saying that the U.S. media is not honest about the number of American soldiers that have been killed. I've heard that number is way greater. What are your thoughts on that?
Before I do that, I just want to comment on the destruction of the Assembly of Experts building. It was empty at the time. So it was, all the people sitting there going, look, they're never going to get the Assembly of Experts has already elected a new supreme leader. It's Ali Khamenei's son, Mojtaba Khamenei, handpicked by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard commander, at least put pressure on. He's far more conservative than his father. And, so there is a new supreme leader in place. So reflect on Donald Trump's ridiculous rambling about, well, I killed the first wave, the second wave, third wave's up. I'll pick the next leader of Iran. They're calling me to find out. I mean, the man is delusional. And the Iranians, there will be no regime change. Their constitution has kicked in. It's a constitutional process, and the Constitution has done what it's supposed to do, provide a vehicle of succession. So there's now a supreme leader. The Assembly of Experts worked. But the other point is that we bombed a building. Everybody's looking at all the imagery coming out of Iran right now of things going boom. We're bombing empty buildings. I just want everybody to understand that. Our target deck appears to be based upon bombing known locations or locations that are suspected of something. For instance, we're blowing up missile production facilities. But as an Iraqi minister once told me, the last time we were in the business of blowing up buildings in the Middle East, in Iraq, he said, Mr. Scott, you Americans are really good at blowing buildings up. You're really good. And we're really good at pouring concrete. But when you blow up a building, it's empty. We've evacuated it. And when our concrete cures, we put the stuff we evacuated back in, and we're back in business. And we can play this game as long as you want. And they did for many years. We never really effectively degraded their capabilities until we removed Saddam Hussein from power. Well, there won't be regime change in Iran. That is absolutely certain. And what we're blowing up today is just empty buildings. The Iranians have evacuated everything, whether it be production equipment or the 88 members of the Assembly of Experts. They're not in that building. They're somewhere else doing business. But our target deck is woefully inadequate. We're blowing up empty buildings. We're not achieving the results we want to achieve. The president's operating under illusions of success that aren't manifested in reality. So now we get to the question. You spoke about the schoolgirls and the tragic death of these schoolgirls. How was that building struck? Let's go back and reflect on what I said. When I was involved in Desert Storm, that was a long time ago, but it was the last time we did a major strategic air campaign against a Middle Eastern country. The target deck that we were using to begin the conflict was very well developed, meaning that when I had a target folder of a place on the ground that was going to be bombed, it was backed by an intelligence folder that was very thick, meaning we had looked at the target, evaluated the target, confirmed that the target was what we said it was. We decided, what the building construction was, what the desired effect was, what kind of munitions, where we wanted the munitions to hit, the whole thing. Now, later on in the conflict, as we blew up all the known targets, we started shifting to follow-on targets because we weren't killing anything because everything was evacuated. And our target folders, the support data became thinner and thinner and thinner until at the end of the war, we were just making stuff up. I mean, you see a school bus in Western Iraq, blow it up. Why? Because it's big enough to ostensibly hold a Scud missile, even though it couldn't. What we've done here is we're hitting the bad targets up front because we don't know what we're bombing in Iran. We simply don't know where anything is. We are making it up. The school, the girls' school that we hit, I guess a decade and a half ago, used to be a Revolutionary Guard command, part of a Revolutionary Guard command, facility, and they closed that down. The part where the girls' school is got cut off and turned into a school, converted into a school, and it's been a school for some time now. And there is no Revolutionary Guard command activity nearby, but our database identified the building as a former Revolutionary Guard command facility. And so now when we have a target set that says suppress the Revolutionary Guard command's ability to, put down demonstrations, we're hitting all the targets related to Revolutionary Guard command. And the system, probably AI assisted, is going through the data and spitting out buildings that had any association with the Revolutionary Command. And so this building got spit out and got put into the target deck with nobody looking at it. This is the danger of AI assisted anything, because AI doesn't think. When people talk about artificial intelligence, there's no intelligence involved. It's simply programmed data manipulation. So when you have a big enough data set and you program certain parameters, it'll just spit out the results. It's like a giant Google search. And that's what happened here. And there's no analyst who sat there and pulled the target aside and did the and did the background, did the real work, the work that I used to do, digging deep into it, finding out, building construction, blueprints, what's the most recent intelligence? Do we have, signals intelligence, communications? Have we seen troops moving in and out? Or are we uncertain about what this thing could be? There's this activity there. What are these little shadows here? Those children's shadows in the photographs. Why are children at this is the deeper, but we didn't do that. We are running one of the most shallowly thought out, intellectually vacant military campaigns possible. When we speak of regime change, we know this because anybody who has studied Iran, me, I don't claim to be an expert. I mean, there's people out there who speak Farsi and all that, but I've been to Iran. I've met with senior Iran. I've met with the president of Iran. I've met with the foreign minister of Iran. I met with Zarif. I know these people. I've studied their religion. I've studied their faith. And so I know that when we speak of regime change in Iran, the worst thing you could do is kill the supreme leader. Because I know that if you kill the supreme leader, the system kicks in. And first of all, you've killed the equivalent of the Pope. Imagine the Catholic faithful waking up in the morning, finding out that Israel killed the Pope. Are they going to sit there and say, oh my God, we're defeated? Or are they going to rise up in the street and rally around and wait for the Vatican to pick the next Pope and renew their faith? Well, that's what happened in Iran. We want people to rally in the street and say, death to Khamenei. Instead, we have millions of people in the street mourning his death and elevating him to a martyr, ensuring that we will never topple this regime. This is intellectually stupid. And this is the totality of the American approach to Iran today. We are bombing empty buildings. We are not achieving any meaningful result. We are fooling ourselves. And every day the Iranians prove just how stupid we are. And now they've buried over 180 children, schoolgirls, murdered by the United States, murdered by Israel, because we are too dumb to live. We are literally a nation of oxygen thieves. We don't belong on this planet because we have now taken the most powerful military in the world and we are committing mass murder. We're not even getting close to achieve what we want. And we have this delusional, orange-faced, narcissistic madman in charge, this cult of personality. We've ceased to function as a constitutional republic. You know who functions as a constitutional republic? Iran. Iran is a better constitutional republic than we are. Iran is a more fundamentally sound democracy than we are. We have a Congress a Speaker of the House that just basically punted on his constitutional responsibility about war. He needs to read not just the Constitution, but the Founding Fathers' thoughts and the what are the the Federalist Papers. Reread Federalist Paper 51 and talk about the congressional responsibility to declare war. It's not optional. It's not we'll do it when it's convenient. It's mandatory. And they punted. He's saying that because this is defensive. I mean, he's coming up with word salad to explain why Congress isn't doing their job. And we have a president who literally told the Supreme Court to pound sand on tariffs. The Supreme Court said what you're doing is unconstitutional. And the president said, I don't care. What are you going to do about it? And Congress should be stepping in, and they're doing nothing. So we don't function as a democracy anymore. We are not even close. We are a cult of personality, and we're going to war against a nation, an Islamic Republic, that is more of a constitutional republic, more democratically accountable. The Assembly of Experts that was bombed. Do you know that they're democratically elected? Do you know who appoints the Assembly of Experts? The Iranian people. Every election, they appoint. It's like the Senate. You vote for a different slate, and so you have rotating point. But the people put these people in power. The Assembly of Experts operates in accordance to the Constitution. They didn't sit there and meet in secret and do things. They met because the Constitution demands it. And they picked the supreme leader as a constitutional figure held accountable to the rule of law, unlike our orange-faced madman. Sorry, I just went off on her.
It's okay. I was just gonna say that just to show people how much they care about you, and I'm gonna pass this one to you, Garland. This was something that came through Tuesday morning. Secretary Rubio and the State Department urges Americans to depart from the countries below using commercial transportation. Look at all the countries they're telling people to leave, and pay attention to these countries, right? Bahrain, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza, telling people to leave Gaza. Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, UAE, and Yemen. Those are all the countries that the U.S. told people, if you're American, you need to leave those countries immediately. But here's the problem, and this just goes to show you how much they care about you. The U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem said the U.S. Embassy is not in a position at this time to evacuate or directly assist Americans in departing Israel. You are on your own. So for people, go ahead, Garland, because I know some people are asking, like, well, how many Americans are there or whatever, but it just goes to show you.
I'm going to, in their defense, they ain't in a position. They're running for their lives. They're hiding in the basement themselves. They're not in any position to help anybody get out. Right now, it's every man for himself and God for us all, as they say. They're running for their lives. The people are there. But look, people may remember in, I think it was 2020, when, or 2019 or 2020, when under Trump, the U.S. killed General Qasem Soleimani. And the Iranians, one of the things they said at that time was, we will eject you from the region at a time and place of our choosing. I think we've just about gotten to the time and place of their choosing. You know, it's interesting because things happen and people are like, why aren't the Russians doing this? Why aren't the Chinese doing this? Why aren't the Iranians doing this? What they don't understand is that these cultures that have been around for thousands of years don't operate on the same timeline as us. They don't just say, you did that, so I got to punch you back. What they know is, I'll just wait. You ever heard the old saying, beware the fury of a patient man? I'll just wait, because sooner or later, things will work out. You'll be looking in the wrong direction. The sun will be in your eyes. Things won't be going right, and I'll sneak up behind you and bop you in the head. I don't know when, but I'm just going to keep watching, and sooner or later, things will line up right. And I think what they've done is they got prepared, and they knew sooner or later we do. Now, think about this. Americans, get out. That's called ejecting yourselves from the region. Ain't going to be no Americans left. The bases will be smashed. The planes that are left there, Trump is literally angry at Spain, saying, Spain, I'm mad at you. Why? Because you won't let me use your bases. Well, what happened to yours? You don't have any bases that you can use? Perhaps they've all been smashed to bits. You've been thrown out of the region, and now you're telling your people, hurry up, get out of the region. There ain't nobody going to be left in the region except the indigenous people of the region. I think that's what we were told by the Iranians, and I think that time is coming to pass.
I really think too that you know, I'm looking back at everything. Benjamin Netanyahu made this speech in Hebrew, and he basically said, you know, like, this is, he'd been waiting 40 years for this, right? So this is what he's been pushing for 40 years. Remember, he was also pushing for the war in Iraq and many others. But I really think that I'm looking back at Professor Jing's lecture where he talked about Pax Judaica, and I'm really starting to see all this kind of how it can all come into place. So it's like, you know, the U.S. empire is it's falling. So all empires don't remain, and it's almost just like they're just pushing all the energy and the power over into Israel. And there's no way I could see the U.S. winning this war with Iran. And I think that Trump knows that. I think all of them know that, but they're selling the American people a bag of lies, I think. But they're really sacrificing American soldiers and whoever else for Israel. Scott?
But what's new? We've been doing this for some time now. What I'll say is this. First of all, that list that you put up there, that is the Middle East. That is the United States being evicted from the Middle East. You know, all of our bases are being destroyed in those very nations. Our embassies are being destroyed. Our consulates are being destroyed. CIA stations are being destroyed. And now the United States is telling the American citizens, leave. That means businessmen, businesses that are there, tourists, expatriates, leave. This is how you excise the cancer, and they're not going to come back. Iran is going to win this war. And I just want to point out, the United States plan that we're executing today is a plan that was developed after the 12-day war, when we were confronted by the fact that Iran had missiles and et cetera, that we had to come up with a plan. So we've been working on this for less than a year. Iran's plan that they're implementing today is a plan that was first written in 2005. And Iran has had over 21 years to build up its resources for this very moment. In 2005, Dick Cheney threatened that the United States was going to go to war against Iran to topple the regime. And so the Iranian government took that very seriously. They broke their nation into 12 autonomous military districts, and they've been working ever since then to beef up the capabilities of these military districts, to give them the ability to survive independently in case a nuclear weapon was dropped on Tehran, but also to build up missiles, drones, etc. And so the plan that Iran is implementing today is a plan Iran has been writing for 21 years. So we've got a 21-year plan that has been backed up with all the resources necessary, going up against an 8-month plan, which has literally been made up on the spot. And we know how made up it is because, you know, President Trump told us that, you know, the initial wave was to last several days. But on day 3, they said, well, we got to redo the whole plan because we miscalculated ammunition expenditure rates and all this. And now they're talking about we may need boots on the ground. That's another, we're making up the plan as we go. And, you know, I saw your face when you said boots on the ground. Relax. We don't have any boots on the ground to send.
Yeah. No.
Remember, I was involved in the greatest movement of boots on the ground to the Middle East, Operation Desert Storm, 750,000 Americans moving there. It took us many months to deploy, and we had airports that worked. So we could fly airplanes in, land at the airports, offload our troops. We didn't have to worry about anything. Our ships went through the Strait of Hormuz and got off in ports and offloaded, didn't have to worry about anything. And it took us months to do that. Today, there are no airports for us to land at. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. There's no ports. For us to put boots on the ground, we are going to have to launch a major amphibious assault and seize an Iranian port, Chabahar or Bandar Abbas. You happen to be talking to somebody who actually in 1985 helped rework the actual op plan to do just that, to seize Chabahar, to seize Bandar Abbas. We don't have those resources anymore. We don't have that capability. And Iran is a completely different threat. General Berger, the commandant who took over a couple years ago, in reviewing what he was required to do under the national security strategy and the national defense strategy, said, we're fooling ourselves because we can't do it. We have a legacy amphibious assault capability built around the notion of giant amphibious warfare ships that we put 1,000 Marines on. And we're supposed to take them out like World War II, park them off the coast of whatever place we're invading, and then the Marines move from ship to shore. Except those ships aren't going to get there because they're going to get hit by missiles and sunk. So we can't do that. So we're not going to put troops on the ground. So no matter what Trump says, Rubio says, we're not going to do it. When we send a heavy armored brigade to Europe, which we've been doing on a rotational basis, the brigade begins preparing for that move 6 months in advance. So the idea that we can tell a brigade, get up and move, it doesn't work that way. We say in 6 months, you need to be able to prepare to be moved to a port, load up on ships, and move out. It takes them 6 months to get ready. That's one brigade. We're talking about, and a brigade is 5,000 people. We're talking about moving 500,000 people. We don't have the shipping. We don't have the air transport capability. We don't have the logistics sustainability. We can't do it. We are not the same power we used to be. And so there will be no boots on the ground, not on that level. We have lost this war, and we just haven't admitted it yet.
Okay, one more question for both of you guys. This came from someone earlier. They wanted me to ask about speculation that Israel has used a directed energy weapon called the Iron Beam for the first time. Is any update on that? Have you guys heard about that?
Well, I'll put it like this. If they have, it ain't working real well. You know, I don't know that they have or haven't. Could they have tested something like that? It's possible. But if they did, it's not doing them any good. They better go to something more conventional. Again, a white flag might be a good option. I'm just throwing that out there. That's the only thing I see that they're going to do to stop the missiles, and probably not, because I heard, I might have been the new guy who took over, who came to power, basically said these words, Israel's fate is sealed. So I just think they're going to continue to pummel them. And I don't think, we'll hear about some weapon. What good would it do might add, it would be a test. What good would it do to test a weapon when you're getting made and turned into Swiss cheese by actual, conventional missiles? They may have, but I just don't think it's a relevant even conversation at this point, to be frank.
Well, they have deployed the Iron Beam. We know it.
Okay.
There's video evidence of it, but it's deployed in northern Israel along the border, and it shoots down Katyushka rockets. So basically, as Hezbollah fires the Katyushkas, as the Katyusha rises up, the Iron Beam shoots it. Now, the interesting thing about the Iron Beam is that there's a delay. I mean, it can shoot one rocket, and there's a delay as it reaccumulates energy, reacquires the target, shoots another rocket, and it's blowing up the rockets. But if you ripple fire enough Katyushkas at it, it can't shoot them all, and it will be destroyed. The other thing is, it can't shoot down the missiles. It doesn't have the ability to track a hypersonic missile coming in. And even if it did, it doesn't have the ability to deliver the energy necessary to destroy that. So, yeah, the Iron Beam is there. Maybe at some point in time in the future, if the technology gets mature, it could do something. But right now, it's a demonstration technology used to limited effect on the border against Katyushka rockets. I want to remind people that even though Iron Beam was there, Hezbollah was successful in striking targets in Haifa and doing a lot of damage, and they continue to strike targets. So Iron Beam is just another one of these pie-in-the-sky weapon systems that everybody said, when they first came out, this is a game changer. I mean, I love X, where people come, you know what I'm talking about, the ones, Hezbollah used to fire rockets into northern Israel. but not anymore. Yesterday, something happened that changes the way the entire world will operate. A game changer called Iron Beam. Iron Beam has been deployed using bursts of energy. Nothing stands in its way. Israel is now alone, cannot be defeated. You've seen you know what I'm talking about, those ridiculous posts. Well, Iron Beam, my prediction, will be iron junk by the end of the week, because a Hezbollah drone will have struck it, blown it up. You find the energy source, you take out the energy source, and you take out the weapon, and it'll just be another, failed weapons system. There's no such thing as a magic weapon system. And that's what people are looking for, something cheap and easy, because the missile defense shield hasn't worked. All the very expensive missile interceptors haven't worked. So they're looking for alternatives. And the concept of this magic laser beam weapon was, supposed to, offset the failures of the other systems. No, not today.
Oh, but Scott, wait, we're getting a Golden Dome, remember? It's going to work every bit as well as the Iron Dome. We're going to get a Golden Dome here. Yeah.
The Golden Dome, there's a one-word response to the Golden Dome. It's called Oreshnik. And when the Russians put Oreshnik in the Kola Peninsula, and we try to put Golden Dome in Greenland, understand that all they have to do is ripple fire Oreshnik, and all of the Golden Dome infrastructure is destroyed and it's over. I just want to tell the American people that, because Donald Trump is getting ready to spend about $1 trillion to put this garbage in. It won't work. And if we ever have to use it in war against Russia, the Russians will take it out before it ever can be used. Welcome to the real world.
Yeah, I want to end with this, which is that, we all have to demand peace. And I know that both of you are very vocal in doing that. Are you guys still planning the trip to promote peace, like in Russia? You guys want to talk about that? Just let everybody know what's up.
Garland and I are going to Russia. We're going to be leaving at the end of this month. Spend about 10 days. We are planning something that I can't. I wish I could talk more about it, but as Garland knows, that you don't count your chickens before they hatch. And the more you talk about something that hasn't been absolutely nailed down, the greater the likelihood is that it isn't going to happen. But conceptually, what we were working on was always relevant. Basically, it's about the role of Islam in creating the conditions for peace in the region. But now, because of the Iran conflict, this project has taken on not just a theoretical importance, but now we're into actual practical importance. Because we are talking about the necessity of healing a rift with a major Islamic nation, the murder of the supreme leader. Again, the American people may not understand what happened, but this is the equivalent of killing the Pope. This is not something that's taken lightly. The Iranians are deeply wounded. The Shia faithful are deeply wounded by this. There will need to be a healing process. And what Garland and I are going to be doing is talking about the practical ways that we can use the Islamic faith to create a healing process. I'm very excited about this. This is a really cool concept, and history has turned out. We just got lucky that we were planning this when this happened, and so it's very relevant. We can definitely use support. If you go to scottritter.com. My website, it's my Substack page, there's a donate button. Garland and I are independent journalists, just like you are, Sabby. And, people, I'll just say this right now. If you can support Garland and I, great. Before you leave here tonight, support Sabby. What she's doing here is a service. She's doing a service to you, because mainstream media has failed us all collectively. And other podcasters out there have failed collectively. Sabby is doing a service. And Sabby deserves to be supported. You need to get off your butts and you need to make donations right now. And maybe she doesn't need all the money rolling in right now. You know what? But the way independent journalism works is you have good times and you have bad times. And right now, help her become a good time. so that later on, when maybe the headlines aren't there and all that stuff, she can ride through. It's the same thing with Garland and I. We have, we've gone to Russia once, we're going to Russia again. Who knows what the future holds? But it ain't cheap. The way we go is we pay for everything. There's a general license in the Department of Treasury sanctions against Russia, because normally, you can't deal with sanctioned individuals, et cetera. But there's a general license for journalists. So if Garland and I wanted to, I could easily get a sponsor in Russia to fly us in business class. And I have to tell you, business class is a nice class to fly. But Garland and I can't afford that. We fly economy class, and that's just the way it goes. We could stay in 5-star hotels paid by other people. And Russia has some really good 5-star hotels. But we don't stay in 5-star hotels because we are paying it ourselves. We could eat at the finest restaurants, but we don't. We eat at the local pelmeni shops because we're paying for it. We rent our own studios. We rent our own cameramen. We rent our own sound engineers. We rent our own translators. We pay for everything, which means because we're not independently wealthy, we need your help to pay for it. So if you guys like what Garland and I are doing, go to scottritter.com, go to the donation page, and donate if you can. But before you do that, before you donate $1 to what Garland and I are doing, give money to Savvy, because she's the one that made tonight possible. She's out there working every day of the week to deliver here, and she deserves, all of our support.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Scott and Garland. Thank you guys so much for coming on, and good luck with the trip, and keep it on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, have a good night.